Welcome to Agriculture in Review, a news program of current interest to South Dakota farmers and ranchers, prepared by the South Dakota Farmers Union. This is Allan Burke. Agriculture will not get a high priority in the fuel crisis. That's the consensus drawn from a series of fuel shortage hearings and meetings in Washington last week. The Agriculture Department is not in a policy-making position on fuel allocations. Policy decisions are being made by Energy Director John Love at the White House and Eli Reich at the Interior Department. Nicholas Smith, Assistant Administrator of the ASCS, candidly admits that political and economic pressures by consumers and industries are likely to win out over agriculture in the fight for fuel supplies. Smith says the U.S.D.A. is doing its best to convince consumers, Congress, and the rest of the administration that farm fuel supplies should be given priority to avoid a serious food shortage. The department is also trying to convince others that fuel is needed on the farm to produce abundant food and fiber for agricultural exports, to improve the balance of payment situation, and to maintain the economy. Arguments being used against priorities for agriculture are that businesses need fuel to avoid massive layoffs and unemployment, and that the consumer will not be willing to sacrifice on fuel consumption in order to provide food for exports. The attitude, Smith said, seems to be that the farmer will just have to take his lumps like everyone else. In lieu of any real power to create a priority for agriculture, the U.S.D.A. has launched a campaign to encourage farmers to lead the way in the conservation of fuel. Smith told a meeting of farm organizations at the department last Wednesday that farmers could cut fuel consumption by 8 to 10%. Several of those in attendance pointed out that because of the cost-price squeeze over the past 20 years, the farmer is already conserving and sacrificing more than anyone else. Others noted that strict fuel conservation measures would decrease yields at the very time that USDA is urging increased production. There are 3 different allocation systems in operation at the present time. 1, a voluntary program for gasoline with no priorities for agriculture. 2, a mandatory program for middle distillates, that's diesel and kerosene, with no priorities for agriculture. And number 3, a mandatory propane program with a high priority for agriculture. Farmers Union National Secretary Bob Lewis submitted a telegram from Nebraska Farmers Union President Allan Burke, which said farmers who are attempting to get more fuel are being told that it may take from 60 to 90 days before the machinery is set up to handle the allocation program. Smith said that 13 regional offices have been set up by the Office of Oil and Gas. Each state has appointed an allocations officer, and that all ASCS offices are available to help farmers apply for hardship allocations. He admitted, however, that it was taking time to set up the machinery. Smith explained that while ASCS offices can help farmers apply for additional fuel, they have no real authority. State allocation officers have been given authority to redistribute up to 10% of fuel supplies to take care of hardship requests. Office of Oil and Gas regional offices can also order a supplier to deliver fuel where it is needed the most. Smith suggests that leaders in agricultural communities should seek out state officers who handle allocations and impress on them the seriousness of the fuel situation in agriculture. During House Agriculture Committee hearings last Monday and Wednesday, Chairman W.R. Bob Pogue of Texas said the record cotton crop, now in the fields, is in real danger because harvesting equipment is sitting idle because of the lack of fuel. Oil companies are claiming that they cannot provide any more diesel fuel because of the mandatory allocation program that requires them to deliver the same amount of fuel the farmer bought during the same month last year. The Office of Oil and Gas sent out a telegram urging suppliers to use common sense in supplying farmers, but oil company lawyers claim that this does not remove the legal barriers. A revised regulation was issued which allows a farmer to borrow against the next month's allocation, but the change does not settle the legal problem or provide more fuel over the year. While calling for fuel conservation on the farm, the USDA is also calling for increased production. If fuel is available for planting but not for harvesting, the farmer will lose both his income and his production costs. At the moment, there are no plans being considered to protect the farmer and the rest of the nation from such a food disaster. And with that rather serious note, we'll close another edition of Agriculture in Review. This is Allan Burke asking you to join us again next week for another review of Rural America's Highlights. This program was produced by the South Dakota Farmers Union.